In Seoul's gleaming Hybe Corporation headquarters, Bang Si-hyuk stared at numbers that shouldn't exist. BTS's latest teaser had pulled millions of views in hours. But these weren't just music fans clicking play. Pentagon analysts were watching. State Department officials were taking notes. The boy band from South Korea had accidentally become more influential than most world leaders. This wasn't supposed to happen. When the Korean Ministry of Culture first allocated funds to their cultural content agency in the late 1990s, they had modest goals. Boost tourism, sell some dramas to neighboring countries, maybe export a few films. President Kim Dae-jung's administration was desperate. The 1997 Asian financial crisis had crushed Korea's economy, leaving the nation scrambling for any source of revenue that didn't require heavy manufacturing or advanced technology they couldn't yet compete on globally. The ministry's initial strategy was almost comically small-scale. They funded indie film productions and subsidized Korean language classes in several countries. The total budget for what they called the Korean Wave Initiative was modest. Cultural attaché Park Min-jung later admitted in her 2019 memoir that most officials viewed the program as expensive public relations with unclear returns. Then came the accident that changed everything. A single Korean drama was about to prove them all wrong and terrify China's government in the process. Autumn in My Heart aired on Chinese television in 2000 and drew a massive audience. But the real shock came next. Chinese teenagers weren't just watching, they were learning Korean. Tourism from China to Korea increased significantly. Beijing's Ministry of Culture issued an internal memo marked urgent concern. Korean entertainment was creating what they called dangerous cultural dependency among Chinese youth. Suddenly, Korean cultural exports weren't just breaking even, they were generating serious money. The government noticed. By the mid-2000s, the Cultural Content Agency's budget had expanded significantly. They weren't just funding random cultural projects anymore. Teams of economists and sociologists were analyzing which Korean cultural products generated the most soft power impact per dollar invested. Music, they discovered, had an almost supernatural ability to create lasting emotional connections with foreign audiences. A Chinese fan of Korean pop music was more likely to view Korea favorably in political surveys, according to research conducted by Seoul National University's Institute for International Affairs. The Korean government began treating pop music like a strategic weapon. In 2007, they established the Korea Creative Content Agency with a specific mandate: deploy Korean cultural content to enhance national brand value and geopolitical influence. This wasn't arts funding anymore. This was statecraft through boy bands. The numbers were staggering. By 2010, K-pop exports generated significant revenue. Korean language enrollment in American universities increased 95% between 2009 and 2013. But the real breakthrough came when government analysts realized something profound. Young people who consumed Korean pop culture didn't just buy Korean products, they began adopting pro-Korean political positions. Then came BTS. 7 young men from Seoul who would accidentally become Korea's most effective diplomatic corps. The transformation happened on May 20, 2017, at the Billboard Music Awards in Las Vegas. BTS won Top Social Artist, beating Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez. But more importantly, they delivered their acceptance speech in Korean, with English subtitles broadcast to millions of American viewers. Korean cultural attaché Kim Sang-wook, watching from the Korean consulate in Los Angeles, immediately called Seoul. But his message wasn't congratulations, it was panic. "We need to control this," he told Deputy Minister Lee Jae-woong. "These boys just reached more Americans in 3 minutes than our entire diplomatic corps reaches in a year." The Korean government faced an unprecedented problem. BTS was becoming more influential than Korea itself. Within 6 months, the Ministry of Culture made a desperate move. They designated BTS as Special Cultural Ambassadors, a position that had never existed before. The boys now had diplomatic immunity and direct access to the Blue House. But the real question wasn't what Korea could do for BTS. It was what BTS might do to Korea if the government lost control of them. President Moon Jae-in began personally meeting with the group before major international appearances. The strategy worked beyond anyone's wildest projections. When BTS addressed the United Nations General Assembly on September 24, 2018, their speech was widely viewed. Korean language apps crashed from download volume. Applications to Korean universities from international students increased significantly in the following academic year. But the real power became visible during geopolitical crises. In 2019, when trade tensions between Korea and Japan reached dangerous levels, BTS member RM posted a single Instagram photo wearing a shirt commemorating Korea's liberation from Japanese occupation. The post received millions of likes and generated more international media coverage than the official statements from both governments combined. Japanese officials privately complained to their Korean counterparts that BTS was making diplomatic resolution more difficult. You might think this sounds like typical celebrity influence, but the scale defies comparison. When BTS announced their support for the Black Lives Matter movement in June 2020, their fans donated $1 million to related organizations within 24 hours. When they spoke about COVID-19 prevention, mask-wearing rates among young people in surveyed countries increased measurably. These 7 musicians had somehow acquired the power to influence global behavior in ways that traditional diplomacy simply couldn't match. Dr. Joseph Nye, the Harvard political scientist who coined the term soft power, told the Financial Times in 2021 that BTS represented the most successful soft power operation in modern history. Unlike American cultural exports, which often carried implicit messages about American superiority, K-pop created positive associations with Korea without triggering nationalist backlash in other countries. The numbers today are almost incomprehensible. Korean cultural exports generated $12.4 billion in 2023, with K-pop accounting for $1.8 billion directly and driving billions more in tourism, language education, and consumer products. Korea now ranks 4th globally in cultural influence, ahead of traditional powers like Germany and the United Kingdom, according to the Global Soft Power Index compiled by consultancy Portland Communications. But the most remarkable achievement isn't economic, it's political. Korea has successfully positioned itself as a cultural superpower while maintaining its military alliance with the United States and its economic relationships with China. BTS performs in Beijing and meets with President Biden in the same month. This is diplomatic flexibility that traditional powers can only envy. The Korean government's investment in soft power has fundamentally altered how small nations can project influence in the 21st century. Rather than building aircraft carriers or nuclear weapons, Korea built a cultural empire that makes millions of people around the world feel personally connected to Korean success. When Korea faces international challenges, it has armies of fans worldwide who view attacks on Korea as attacks on something they love. Today, other nations are desperately trying to replicate Korea's model. Japan has allocated significant funds to promote anime and manga internationally. Thailand is investing heavily in exporting Thai dramas and music. Even France has launched programs to promote French pop culture, though with limited success compared to Korea's phenomenon. The irony is that Korea's greatest geopolitical weapon was created almost by accident. BTS succeeded because of their genuine talent and authentic connection with fans, not because of government planning. The Korean state simply recognized what they had and amplified it brilliantly. What started as a desperate economic recovery plan has become the blueprint for 21st century influence. Korea proved that in our connected world, making people love your culture might be more powerful than making them fear your military. When millions of teenagers around the globe wake up excited about Korean music, Korean fashion, and Korean values, traditional diplomacy looks almost quaint by comparison. The boy band that accidentally conquered the world has taught us something profound about power itself. In an age when trust in governments and institutions continues declining worldwide, perhaps the most effective way to change hearts and minds isn't through official channels at all. But here's the question that should keep other nations awake at night. If 7 musicians from Seoul can reshape global cultural preferences this dramatically, what happens when Korea's next generation of artists hits the world stage?